Here it is, finally, scheduling. So there's the obvious idea of a project deadline, right? Again, to use the home security system example, your deadline may be the fall, right? Because it's going to get a lot harder to work on it once it's super cold if you live in a colder climate. Or it may be the summer if you live in an extremely hot climate, or the rainy season, or whatever, right? If you're working with a car, you may have a lot of those same deadlines. If you're working on a computer, it may be the weekend, or the deadline may be the weekend when you wanted to play games with friends or something, right? The deadline is usually reasonably obvious. It's some of these other points here that may not be. Your maximum availability, right? Are you going to be available enough at, worst case scenario to actually complete the project if things aren't going the way that you want them to? Or is there enough cushion built into your schedule, or have you correctly accounted for difficulty of some tasks to make it so that you're available enough to hit that deadline? And there's also breaks. Even in a healthy professional culture, there's usually going to be breaks from projects for a variety of people, right? If you're working with a team, it's not usually healthy for that whole team to be on what's called the critical path, meaning that they're working at 100% capacity on the same project for an extremely long period of time. That's just bad for humans in general, and it's also bad for people's productivity and their long-term growth, which, if you're a good employer, you're usually interested in those things. So if you have necessary breaks from projects, like, you have scheduled vacations where you won't be home to work on your car, or things like that, you should account for them if the project timeline is particularly sensitive or short, whatever the case is, so that you have to be concerned. If the project deadline is long enough and it's a personal project, it really probably doesn't matter, right? Again, using the security system example, it's the spring right now, so if I start working on a security system in the next week or so, it's probably not going to take me until winter to finish it. I definitely do not have the sort of resources to acquire a house or living space that would require that amount of time to secure. But it's important to keep in mind that you will need breaks in one way, shape, or form. And along with that comes some distractions. Some are on purpose, let's be honest. Others are not quite as deliberate. Maybe you're halfway through security system setup and a storm comes through and undoes some of your work, or maybe even destroys some equipment. But just saying it undoes some work or makes it so that you have to focus on cleaning branches out of your yard before you can get back to the security system, right? That's all fine, but these sorts of distractions come up, and if it's a professional setting, they're definitely something to keep in mind when you're planning a project. Is there anything out there that's likely to be a distraction for me, to distract me from the thing I need to do in my professional setting that could hurt my ability to get to the deadline? And then there's how much time do you want to spend on it? And how to define the word want maybe varies on the setting. For example, in a personal project, it may literally just mean want, right? If you don't feel like spending more than 2 hours on installing a turbocharger in a car, guess what? You probably shouldn't start that project. But in a professional setting, the definition of want can be a little bit more complicated. So it could potentially mean just want, right? Just like a personal setting. But it could also mean as a company, or as a customer, right? How much time does your customer want you to spend before you figure out if it's going to work, or before it's completed, or anything like that? And the company that you work for or own may have a similar idea, and those two numbers may not align. The customer may be comfortable with a different number than your company or you personally. And that's all okay, but when you're scheduling, that's another thing to keep in mind, is you can make the perfect schedule, but if people aren't going to be happy, whether it's you or someone else, it hardly matters. So I think that's it for scheduling. And I believe the next topic is going to be project execution tips. So I will see you in the next one.